Have you ever heard the saying, sometimes the quietest people have the loudest hearts? What if I told you that a boy who barely spoke, a boy everyone ignored, once saved an entire city, without ever saying a word? Welcome to The Boy Who Spoke Through the Sky, a powerful, emotional story about silence, genius, and unexpected heroism. You're about to witness how one misunderstood child became the voice of hope when no one else could speak. If stories like this move you, if you're drawn to tales of courage, innovation, and the power of being different, then you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss a single story. As you listen, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me your favorite moment, your thoughts on Eli's journey, or how this story made you feel. Now, let's begin the story and discover how one silent boy spoke through the sky. Eli Harper is a quiet, introspective black child in Boston who has always been considered strange. Often misunderstood and underestimated, he spends most of his time building drones and tinkering with technology, far from the spotlight. But when a massive disaster strikes the city, it's Eli's quiet genius that saves lives. Using a drone he built himself, Eli leads rescue operations, guiding emergency crews and helping those stranded by the storm. As the city begins to heal, Eli finds himself thrust into the role of an unexpected hero, showing that even those who are silent and overlooked can have the power to make a profound impact. The Boy Who Spoke Through the Sky is a story of quiet strength, innovation, and the power of speaking through actions when words fall short. Will Eli's brilliance be enough to help his city rebuild? And will the world ever truly understand the boy who spoke through the sky? Listen on to discover how one child's silence turned into a beacon of hope. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional and is created for the purpose of providing moral lessons, motivation, inspiration, and other forms of learning for the viewers. The characters, events, and situations depicted in the story are not based on real people or events. While the story may touch on themes of resilience, innovation, and community, any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. The narrative is designed to engage the audience with valuable insights and reflections, encouraging personal growth and a deeper understanding of the world around us. In the heart of Boston's Roxbury neighborhood, where row houses pressed close like families whispering secrets and church bells chimed through narrow streets, there lived a boy who rarely spoke. His name was Elijah Harper, but almost no one used it. To the teachers at Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School, he was just Eli, the quiet one. To his classmates, he was Ghost. He didn't talk, didn't play, didn't sit with anyone during lunch. He was always there and yet somehow not. Most days, Eli could be found sitting on the edge of the schoolyard bench, eyes drifting to the clouds while others chased soccer balls or hurled words like weapons across the cracked pavement. His dark brown hands clutched a worn black notebook. Inside, pages bloomed with pencil diagrams, sketches of wings, gears, circuit paths, and handwritten code. None of the other kids ever asked him what he was drawing. They assumed it was nonsense like him. The teachers tried once in a while. Miss Jackson, the counselor, would lower her voice and lean in, saying things like, "You know you can talk to me, Elijah." He would nod. That was all. Not rude. Just distant. It didn't help that Eli often wore oversized headphones, not for music but to block out the chaotic noise of crowded hallways. Most students had stopped trying to include him by the time 6th grade rolled around. The conclusion was unanimous. Elijah Harper was strange. He lived with his grandmother, Alma Harper, in a second-floor walk-up above a shuttered beauty salon. The building was old, bricks crumbling at the edges, but inside their apartment, everything was spotless. Alma was a retired nurse with sharp eyes and a quiet strength. She never pressured Eli to talk more than he wanted. She knew what the world thought of him, and she didn't care. Every night, she left his dinner on a tray, and every morning she left him a note in perfect cursive that always ended with "Love you, boy." That was enough for her. What no one outside those walls knew was what Eli did in his room. The space looked nothing like a child's. There were no posters, no toys. Instead, there were shelves stacked with scavenged parts from old VCRs, disassembled RC cars, and secondhand laptops he'd found in the trash or bought cheap from flea markets. Stray wires coiled like snakes across the floor. A soldering kit sat on the windowsill beside a roll of duct tape and a tangle of microcontrollers. In the center of it all, perched like a skeletal bird mid-flight, was his masterpiece, a drone he had been building for 9 months. It was unlike anything you could buy at a store. The frame was lightweight aluminum with carbon reinforcements, the propellers salvaged from broken quadcopters. He had programmed the software himself using bits of open-source code and lines of his own invention. The camera mount could rotate 360 degrees, and a small speaker was embedded beneath its body. He named it Iris. Every afternoon after school, Eli climbed onto the roof of the apartment building, a flat stretch of tar paper and rusted vents, and launched Iris into the sky. He wore a set of custom-built goggles connected to the drone's live feed, giving him a bird's-eye view of his neighborhood. Up there he felt weightless, silent, powerful. He watched the world from above, seeing things no one else could. He noticed Mrs. Delaney's dog always got out at exactly 5:30. He saw the way the mailman lingered by the door of apartment 3B. He counted the exact number of cracks in the street below. He studied the patterns of people, how they moved, where they paused, how they looked when they thought no one was watching. Sometimes Eli used Iris to do small good things. He had once guided a lost cat back to its home with a trail of meows from the speaker. Another time he followed a kid's stolen bike and dropped a message near the thief that simply read, "I see you. Put it back." The bike showed up the next morning. But no one knew about Iris. No one knew about the boy on the roof who watched their lives unfold through a camera lens. Until the day the city burned. That morning had started like any other. Overcast skies. A breeze heavy with sea salt from the harbor. Eli had skipped breakfast, too focused on rewiring Iris's power distribution board. A new idea had struck him during math class. A way to extend flight time by rebalancing the voltage across the rotors. He was halfway through the adjustment when he felt the first tremor. It wasn't an earthquake, not exactly. More like a deep pulse under the ground, followed by a sound like the earth itself tearing open. Then came the sirens. Not one or two, dozens. The kind that didn't stop. The kind that screamed fear into the air. Eli ran to the window. A thick column of black smoke was rising in the distance. He grabbed his controller, goggles, and Iris. His grandmother had gone out earlier, probably to the corner store. He stuffed a note into her mailbox just in case. Gone to the roof. "I'm okay. Love you." And then he climbed. From the rooftop, the world had changed. Flames licked up from 3 blocks over. The entire eastern stretch of Tremont Street was shrouded in smoke. Shouts echoed from every direction. A second explosion rang out, closer. The traffic lights down the avenue blinked erratically. Sirens screamed, mingled with the panicked voices of people who had never imagined Boston could break like this. Eli didn't hesitate. He slid the goggles over his eyes, adjusted the transmitter, and launched Iris into the sky. Below, the city begged for help. Above, the silent boy began to speak. The moment Iris lifted into the sky, Eli's hands moved with precision. His thumbs hovered over the analog sticks while his fingers tapped at switches with instinctive rhythm. Through the goggles, his world transformed into a grayscale panorama. The smoke clouding the city streets was thick and rolling, but his custom filters and thermal imaging sliced through it like mist. Downtown Boston, once a bustling web of movement and noise, had become a patchwork of chaos. He climbed the drone to a higher altitude. Fires blazed along the edges of buildings. Emergency vehicles wove frantic paths through choked intersections. Pedestrians ran in erratic bursts. Some stumbled. Some carried others. Some stood frozen in disbelief. He pressed the side of his headset. A small microphone, barely noticeable beneath his collar, clicked on. "Iris, begin scan mode. Identify heat signatures above ground level. Prioritize non-mobile." The voice recognition responded with a soft beep. On the screen, red dots flickered to life, each one a trapped or injured person. Eli turned his focus toward one near the corner of Washington and East Newton. The building looked partially collapsed, its lower floors swallowed by debris. On the rooftop, waving a yellow jacket like a flag, stood a woman and a child. "I see you," Eli whispered. He adjusted the drone's course, guiding it toward the building. Through the camera feed, he saw the child crying, the woman crouched beside her, trying to keep her calm. The rooftop trembled beneath them with each aftershock from the initial explosion. Iris hovered nearby, its rotors slicing the air with a low hum. The woman shielded her eyes, startled. Then from the drone speaker, Eli's voice came through, soft, steady, and clear. "You're not alone. Help is coming. Stay where you are. I'm guiding them to you." The woman blinked in disbelief. She looked around, expecting someone to be standing nearby. But no one was there. Only the voice. The voice from above. Eli toggled a preset signal on his console, one he had designed just for emergencies. It broadcasted the drone's GPS location and video feed to emergency frequencies. He had hoped never to use it. Now it pulsed a beacon directly into the city's overwhelmed emergency dispatch system. In the Boston Fire Department's mobile command unit, chaos reigned. Radio chatter poured from every speaker. Dispatchers scrambled to reroute teams. Maps were scrawled with red lines and X's. And then came the anomaly, a digital signal, unlabeled but live, beaming a clear visual of a trapped civilian on a rooftop. Captain Jenna Roses, a firefighter with 20 years of experience and soot on her jacket collar, leaned in. "Where's this feed coming from?" "Unclear," a tech replied. "We just started receiving it. It's from a drone, Captain." "Whose?" "No ID tag. But it's helping us." On the screen, she saw the drone hover beside the woman and child. Then she heard the voice. "There are 2 people trapped on the rooftop. Direct your team to these coordinates." "Repeat. 2 people. Rooftop. Stable for now but unsafe long term. Send help." Captain Rosa stared. The voice was young. "Come, Mel. But not synthetic. Human. Patch me through," she ordered. Her voice went out into the open signal. "Drone operator, this is Captain Roses with Boston Fire. Identify yourself." There was silence for a beat. Then Eli spoke. "Not important. People are waiting. I can help you find them." Pause. "Show me." Eli exhaled slowly. The connection was made. He was in. Over the next 20 minutes, he worked in tandem with Captain Roses and her team. He directed them to a man trapped between 2 collapsed cars near Melnia Cass Boulevard, barely visible through the smoke. He found an elderly woman waving from a 4th-story window where the fire escape had fallen away. He mapped out the safest path for a rescue team by identifying which sidewalks were clear and which ones were riddled with glass and rubble. As he worked, something happened inside him. A sensation he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't joy. It wasn't pride. It was something deeper, purpose. The voice he had hidden for so long became a lifeline. People listened. People responded. No one asked if he was weird or why he didn't say more. No one called him Ghost. They called him Operator. Guardian. Sky Voice. Back on the street, a teenager named Marcus, one of Eli's classmates, stood with his phone raised, recording a fire truck swerving into a side street. The voice from the drone echoed faintly from above. Marcus squinted into the sky. "Yo, is that a drone?" The people around him looked up. They started pointing, then clapping. They saw the same thing. A black, bird-like machine circling like a guardian angel, its camera glinting against the firelight. And every time it spoke, it said just what people needed to hear. "You are not alone. Rescue is minutes away. Hold on. I see you." Marcus whispered, "Who the hell is that?" 3 hours into the operation, Eli's hands started to cramp. His throat was dry. He had been speaking non-stop, guiding units from one zone to the next. His grandmother hadn't come back yet. The fire had spread closer to their neighborhood. The sky was orange and gray. Helicopters thundered in the distance. Then a new signal caught his attention. A voice, small, choked, coming from Iris's microphone. "Please, I'm scared." Eli snapped to the feet. A little boy, no older than 6, stood in an alley surrounded by broken glass and smoke. He had a scraped knee and a flashlight that barely flickered. He must have wandered off from his family. "Don't move," Eli said, his voice firmer now. "I see you. I'm sending someone." The boy looked around, confused. "Who are you?" "I'm the one in the sky." And in that moment, the child stopped crying. Eli dropped a small first aid packet from Iris's payload bay. It landed a foot away from the boy. A thermal blanket. Bandages. A tiny glow stick. He had prepared it months ago, never truly believing it would be needed. The boy sat down beside it and clutched the blanket. From far above, Eli watched. He stayed with him until the firefighters arrived. He said nothing more. He didn't need to. By the time the sun dipped low over the harbor, Boston was a fractured city. Streets shimmered with heat from burned-out cars. Water flooded from ruptured pipes and spread like silver veins across cracked pavement. Ash hung in the air, drifting onto the shoulders of those who could still stand. And yet, amidst the debris and sirens, something unexpected began to grow: hope. Word of the mysterious drone operator spread like wind through the smoke. "He found my daughter in the stairwell," someone said, their voice trembling with gratitude. "He told us which way to go. We never would have made it out. I don't know his name, but that voice, it saved us." Eli, still on the rooftop, didn't hear these words. His headset was tuned only to the task. His body ached from hours in the same position, his fingers sore and trembling from the strain of holding the controller. The goggles pressed grooves into his skin, but he didn't take them off. The voice in his ear, Captain Rose's, was still with him. Operator, we've got 3 more people unaccounted for near South End. We're running out of daylight. Can you sweep the rooftops? Eli's own voice was soft, hoarse now. On it. He adjusted the controls and Iris veered toward the skyline, the propellers buzzing against the humid dusk. As the drone flew low above rooftops, Eli scanned each building like clockwork. Some had already been evacuated. Others were empty shells. Then he spotted movement. A man was waving a white towel from a third-story ledge, half shielded by smoke. Another person was slumped beside him, injured, barely conscious. Found 2, Eli said. Third story, southeast corner of Harrison and Camden. 1 mobile, 1 not. Sending GPS now. Captain Roses replied quickly. Copy that. Sending a team. Eli switched Iris to hover mode and watched the scene, waiting for the blinking red and blue lights of the fire crew to round the corner. He wanted to make sure they got there in time. But then the screen flickered. Static laced across his feed. The drone stuttered, dipped. Eli's heart clenched. He tore off the goggles and frantically checked the console. The power levels were dropping fast. The internal temperature was rising. No, not now, he muttered. Come on, Iris, hold on. He had pushed the drone too hard. Too long. 9 hours of flight. Uninterrupted strain. The battery was at its limit, the circuits overheating. Iris dropped 20 feet in a single second. Eli slammed the joystick forward to stabilize. The camera shook violently. Operator? Captain Roses's voice broke in. We're losing your feed. I'm still here, he rasped, holding the transmitter like a lifeline. I'm bringing it down. Rebooting. Give me a minute. His hands moved with practice speed. Power cycle, emergency fan boost, rewire the backup regulator. He bit his lip so hard it bled. The drone leveled. Stabilized. The camera came back online. On the screen, the man was now holding onto the ledge with both hands, trying to keep the injured person from slipping. A wail of fire engines approached from the distance. They were close. Hang on, Eli whispered into the speaker. Help is seconds away. Don't let go. Then at last the ladder truck pulled up below. 2 firefighters sprinted into the building. A third extended the ladder toward the ledge. Eli leaned back, hands still hovering above the controls, and exhaled for the first time in what felt like an hour. They're safe, Captain Roses confirmed through the headset. You did it, operator. But Eli wasn't listening anymore. His body slumped. His arms ached with fatigue. He let the goggles slip off and rolled onto his back, staring at the darkening sky above his apartment roof. From far below, a sound rose, faint at first, then clearer. Applause. He sat up slowly and looked over the edge. A crowd had gathered in the street beneath his building. Neighbors, strangers, people who had heard the stories. Some had been saved by him. Others just came to see the one who had become a legend in a single afternoon. They didn't know his name or his face, but they had followed Iris's flight. Someone must have traced the drone's path, seen where it returned. They weren't looking at Iris now. They were looking up at him. Eli ducked back out of view. He wasn't ready. Inside the apartment, the front door creaked open. Alma Harper stepped in carrying a small bag of groceries, face streaked with soot. She had been helping at the shelter down the street when the explosion started. Her legs ached from walking back through closed-off roads and fire barriers. She set the bag on the table and looked around. Eli, she called. No answer. Then she noticed the glow under the door to his room. She pushed it open gently. There he was, sitting cross-legged on the floor. The drone controller lay beside him. The headset's red light blinked slowly, still on. His face was flushed with exhaustion, his fingers stained with metal grease. Alma didn't say a word. She crossed the room, knelt beside him, and wrapped him in her arms. Eli didn't resist. He leaned into her chest, his eyes wet but not crying. Just full. He hadn't spoken to her all day, but she didn't need his words. He had spoken to the whole city. Elsewhere, Captain Roses stood in the back of the mobile command van, watching the last transmission from Iris. The feed zoomed out, panned upward, and settled on the Boston skyline, battered, yes, but still standing. She turned to the young dispatcher beside her. Find out who that kid is, she said. The dispatcher raised an eyebrow. You think he's just a kid? Roses didn't hesitate. I know he is, and I want to meet him. She turned back to the screen. For a moment she just watched the sky. Because whatever comes next, she whispered, we could use more voices like his. The morning after the disaster, Boston wore its bruises openly. Streets were blocked with barricades and yellow tape. Smoke lingered in alleys like ghosts refusing to leave. National news crews arrived before sunrise, their vans parked in rows along Tremont Street. Every channel cycled through headlines: explosion rocks Boston, hero drone rescues dozens, mystery voice guides first responders. In every version of the story, one name was missing. There were no photos, no interviews, no official statements, just the recordings. Audio clips of a boy's voice, calm and clear, guiding firefighters, comforting the injured, and telling frightened children that they were not alone. The city played those clips on loop, trying to decipher who he was. But Eli Harper didn't leave the house that morning, or the next. He wasn't hiding. He was resting, silent. He lay in bed with his arm over his face, Iris resting quietly on the table nearby. The drone's casing was open, its circuits cooled, but its propellers still carried a thin layer of ash. He couldn't bring himself to clean it. Not yet. The city buzzed outside his window, but his room remained still. Safe. He heard the occasional knock on the front door, reporters, city workers, neighbors with casseroles, but Alma sent them all away. She left warm food by his door and never asked him to speak about what happened. She understood something most people didn't. Eli wasn't mute. He just didn't speak unless he had something worth saying. And when the city had burned, he had spoken volumes. 2 days later, a letter arrived. It wasn't a typed note or a mass-printed flyer. It was handwritten on thick paper and tucked inside a navy blue envelope with a silver seal embossed on the back. Alma found it on the porch steps, placed carefully as if by someone who didn't want to knock. She turned it over in her hands, then walked it inside. "Eli," she said gently from the hallway, "this one's different." He opened his door and took the envelope with cautious fingers. The seal read, "Office of the Mayor. No return address. No stamp. Delivered by hand." He sat at his desk, heart steady, and opened it. The note was short. "Careful. To the voice in the sky. There is no medal that can fully express what you've done. But the people of this city remember. I remember. If you ever wish to speak, publicly or privately, we would be honored to hear you. Thank you, whoever you are. Mayor Isabel Lake." Eli stared at the signature for a long time. He didn't smile, but he felt seen. School resumed the following week. Students filed back into the brick building on Shawmut Avenue like ghosts returning to life. The fire hadn't reached their neighborhood, but the fear had. Every desk felt closer together now. Every hallway seemed too narrow. Eli walked through the entrance without a word. He moved like a shadow between lockers and classrooms. People turned when he passed. He heard murmurs. "That's him, right? Can't be. I heard he never talks. I heard he saved like 30 people." He kept walking. In homeroom, Marcus glanced up from his seat. The same Marcus who had once called him Ghost with a smirk. Now his expression was different, careful, like someone trying not to ruin something fragile. As Eli slid into his chair, Marcus leaned slightly closer. "Hey," he said. Eli looked at him, not answering. Marcus scratched the back of his neck. "If that was you with the drone, that was crazy. Like actually incredible. Just saying. Eli tilted his head. Still silent. Still watching. But Marcus didn't flinch this time. He just nodded once, then turned back to his notebook. And for the first time since kindergarten, Eli didn't feel like the quiet kid in the corner. He felt present. That afternoon, something even stranger happened. As the final bell rang and kids poured into the courtyard, a small girl ran up to Eli and tugged his sleeve. She couldn't have been older than 7. "Are you the Sky Voice?" she asked, eyes wide with wonder. He blinked at her. "My brother says you talked from the clouds. You said I'd be okay. That I'd be found. Was that you?" Eli hesitated. The answer hovered in his throat. Then he knelt down slowly and whispered, "Yes." The girl smiled so hard it made her cheeks wobble. She hugged him without asking. When she let go, her mother, standing nearby, mouthed the words, "Thank you." Eli nodded and walked home with a different weight on his shoulders. Not the burden of being misunderstood, but the strange, new gravity of being remembered. That night, Alma found him on the roof again. He sat beside Iris, legs dangling over the edge, watching the skyline glow in orange twilight. The city was rebuilding, cranes moving steel like chess pieces, workers swarming rooftops like bees. It would take time, but it was healing. Alma set down 2 cups of hot cocoa beside him and sat on the blanket they'd used when he was younger, back when they'd stargaze in silence. "You did something good," she said. Eli stared out over the buildings. "It didn't fix everything." "No," she replied. "But it fixed something. And that's enough for now." He nodded. They sat together in silence, cocoa in hand, wind in their faces. Then Alma added, almost like an afterthought, "They're planning a memorial in Copley Square. For the victims. And the heroes. Might be good to go. Just to listen." Eli didn't answer. Not right away. But after a long pause he said quietly, "Maybe." And in Alma's world, maybe from Eli Harper was as good as a promise. The memorial was held at dusk. By 7 o'clock, Copley Square was filled shoulder to shoulder. Families stood wrapped in blankets, candles flickering in their hands. Children clutched stuffed animals that had survived the fires. A soft, respectful silence hung over the square, the kind of hush that doesn't come from fear but reverence. The makeshift stage was modest. Just a few planks of wood beneath the old clock tower, strung with pale lights. Behind it, banners hung with names of the lost. In front of it, the crowd swayed gently in the evening wind. Alma and Eli arrived just as the mayor stepped up to the microphone. They stayed near the back. Alma placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "You don't have to speak," she whispered. "Not tonight. Not ever. Just be here." He nodded. His hands were cold in his coat pockets. Iris was home this time, tucked safely under a cover in his workshop. Tonight wasn't about drones. It was about people. Mayor Lake stood straight at the podium, her voice carried by the soft crackle of speakers. "We gather tonight not only to remember," she said, "but to honor." She paused, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "We lost good people. We lost homes and businesses. But we did not lose each other. We stayed connected, even when the streets cracked, when the smoke blocked the sun. We found each other." She let the words breathe. There was one voice many of us heard. A quiet voice. A steady one. No name. No face. Just direction. Comfort. And bravery. The crowd shifted. Some murmured. Others turned to look around, wondering. Alma gently squeezed Eli's hand. Mayor Lake continued. "We don't know who this person is, but we owe them a great debt. So tonight we will leave this mic open. Not for a speech. Not for applause. Just in case that voice wants to be heard, one more time." Then she stepped back. Silence returned. The lights on the stage dimmed slightly, waiting. No one moved at first. Then someone in the front row called out, "Let the voice speak." A few others echoed, "Let the voice speak." But still no one came forward. Eli felt the knot in his stomach twist. His legs didn't want to move. His voice curled behind his ribs, locked away. And yet, his feet shifted. Before he could question it, he was walking. Slowly. Carefully. The crowd parted, surprised. A few people gasped. Not because they recognized him, but because they didn't expect someone so young. So quiet. Eli stepped up the stairs and stopped beside the microphone. The city held its breath. He didn't touch the mic. He just looked out at them all, this sea of faces lit by candlelight, eyes wide, mouths shut. 1,000 people waiting to hear what he had to say. He swallowed hard. His voice came out soft, cracked by nerves, but true. "I'm not brave," he said. People leaned forward. "I just wanted to help." A gust of wind carried his words over the square. "I didn't think anyone would listen. I didn't think my voice mattered. But I knew how to fly. I knew how to build. And when the city started breaking, I couldn't sit quiet." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd. "I'm not used to being seen," Eli continued. "Not at school. Not outside. People always said I was strange. That I'd never do anything important. But I had something. And when it mattered, I used it." He paused, looking out at them all. "And if you're out there and you feel like nobody hears you, don't stop building. Don't stop learning. Because the world might not see you until it needs you. And then, it will." Silence again. Then a single clap. Then two. Then hundreds. Applause rose like thunder through the square. Some people cried. Others cheered. It wasn't loud like a stadium, but it was strong. Pure. Eli stepped back from the mic and started to leave the stage. But the mayor was waiting for him. She knelt to his level and handed him something small and shining. Not a medal, not a trophy, but a simple silver pin shaped like a compass. "For helping us find our way," she said quietly. Eli took it with shaking hands. Then turned and walked off the stage into Alma's arms. That night, news stations didn't just talk about a drone. They talked about a boy. The footage played across screens from Boston to Los Angeles. Eli Harper's small frame standing alone before a city. But more importantly, in homes across the country, other quiet kids watched and saw something they hadn't seen before. A place for themselves. A voice that sounded like theirs. Back at home, Eli sat on his bed with the pin in his palm. He turned it over once, twice, unsure where to put it. Alma stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling softly. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Eli looked up at her, then down at the compass. "Where to go next?" he said. The city began to heal, slowly but with purpose. Boarded windows turned into scaffoldings, then fresh glass. Streets once littered with ash were swept clean, bricks laid anew, lights repaired. Boston, proud and stubborn as ever, refused to stay down. But the memory of that day remained. Not just in scars or broken walls, but in the shape of a drone named Iris, and the boy who guided it. Eli Harper did not vanish back into silence after the memorial. He returned to his quiet routines, school, tinkering, solitary walks through the South End. Yet something had changed. People saw him now. Not as a curiosity or a shadow, but as a person. Some waved. Some whispered. Others left folded notes in his locker. Thank yous from students he'd never spoken to. Teachers called him by name with a gentleness they hadn't used before. Even Principal Swenson, the stern, tight-lipped man who once labeled him undersocialized, offered him a nod of respect in the hall. Eli didn't crave attention. He never had. But it felt good not to be invisible. One Saturday morning, 2 weeks after the memorial, Eli received an invitation. Hand-delivered again, this time by a courier in a windbreaker who simply said, "They've been looking for you," before vanishing back down the stairs. Inside the envelope was a single sentence and a map. "We'd like to offer you a space to create, and a reason to keep going. Come see the watchtower." Alma raised her eyebrows as he held up the card. "Sounds like something out of a comic book." Eli smirked faintly. Then he packed his bag. The watchtower wasn't a tower at all. It was a top floor within the Boston Innovation Institute, an experimental tech hub just outside the financial district. The building was sleek, all steel and glass, with a green rooftop garden and an elevator that required both a badge and a fingerprint. When Eli arrived, a woman in a gray blazer greeted him. "You're the youngest we've ever invited," she said, offering her hand. "Name's Lorette. I head the Emerging Talents program." Eli shook her hand without speaking. "I've been tracking your drone specs," she continued. "You built Iris from scrap parts and coded your own flight AI. Do you know how rare that is?" Eli shrugged a little. "I had time." Lorette smiled. "Well, we'd like to give you more than just time." She guided him past rooms lined with screens, lab benches, and workspaces filled with half-assembled robots. Every corner buzzed with quiet genius, young minds soldering, sketching, experimenting. They passed one table where 2 students argued over heat sensors. Another where someone tested a robotic arm that mimicked sign language. "This," Lorette said, stopping at a glass door, "is your space." The room beyond was empty except for a large work table, wall-mounted monitors, shelves of spare drone parts, and a simple chair by the window. Eli stepped inside and ran his hand along the table's surface. It was smooth. "No. Waiting. We don't need you to be anyone else," Lorette said softly behind him. "We just want you to keep building. The world needs more of what you gave it." He looked back at her, then nodded. By the end of the month, Eli had rebuilt Iris from the ground up. She was faster now, lighter. The wings folded differently, the sensors sharper. He installed a tiny emergency speaker system and wrote new algorithms for heat mapping and route prediction. But he didn't stop there. He began building something else. The second drone. Smaller, smarter. Meant not just for search and rescue, but for guidance, for communication. It would carry messages to people in places no one else could reach. Forest flood zones. War zones, maybe. He didn't know where yet. But the vision was clear. He called it him. Because where Iris had been a voice in the smoke, him would be a voice in silence. One evening, as he worked late in the watchtower, his new monitor lit up with an alert. Live feed requested, Boston Fire Department, Rescue Division. He clicked accept. Captain Roses appeared on the screen, helmet off, hair pulled into a loose braid. Behind her, the hum of a firehouse filtered through. "Evening, operator," she said with a smile. Eli smiled back, a rare one, real and soft. "We've been reviewing your drone schematics," Roses continued. "That new folding wing design? It could revolutionize our aerial units. I've got 3 engineers begging to meet you." Eli rubbed the back of his neck. "I'd like that." Roses leaned forward. "We're also developing a civilian safety app for disasters, missing persons, real-time directions. We want to integrate your mapping software." Eli blinked. "Really? You're not just a voice anymore," Roses said. "You're a signal. One the city listens to." The call ended a few minutes later, but her words stayed with him. A signal. Something broadcast. Something trusted. Something heard. By spring, Eli had become more than a myth. He was a collaborator. A name on blueprints. A whispered influence in classrooms and city meetings. Tech blogs began to refer to him as the boy behind the wings. Not loud. Not flashy. But persistent. Respected. One evening, Alma found him on the rooftop again, laptop open, his new frame spread across a mat beside him. She sat beside him with a sigh. "You ever gonna stop flying?" she asked. Eli glanced at her. "Not yet." She smiled. "Good." They sat quietly together, the sun bleeding orange behind the skyline. Below them, the city buzzed with life. People laughing on balconies, trains passing under bridges, a dog barking in the distance. And somewhere out there, someone who thought they had no voice, was listening. The day the next storm hit, it wasn't fire. It was rain. Relentless, flooding rain that pushed the city into chaos again. Different this time, but just as dangerous. Storm drains overflowed. Streets turned into rivers. The Charles threatened to leap its banks, and the MBTA ground to a halt, its tunnels underwater. Boston once again stood on the edge of emergency. But this time it wasn't caught unprepared. They had the system. They had the signal. They had him. It started with a soft ping on Eli's watch as he sat in the watchtower lab, adjusting his camera lens. The alert. High water warning, South Boston to Seaport. Multiple power outages reported. Emergency response activated. He turned to his desk, activated Iris and him simultaneously, their eyes blinking to life. They lifted off from the rooftop pads like twin sparks in the dark, cutting through the rising fog. Eli slid his headset on and opened the secure channel. "Deploying Iris," he said calmly. "Activating him for guidance." The command center answered instantly. "Copy, Sky Operator. We're with you." Just like that, it began again. Iris sped through narrow alleyways, mapping blocked roads and downed lines. Eli spoke through her as he had before, measured, precise. "There's a family trapped in a delivery van off D Street. Water's past the axle. Sending coordinates now." Fire crews rerouted. Him, lighter and swifter, flitted above rooftops, broadcasting safe exit routes to citizens stranded in upper-floor apartments. A network of speakers built into her wings played a message on repeat. "This is Skywatch. Do not attempt to drive. Help is on the way." Eli monitored her flight paths with quiet intensity, his fingers dancing across keys, adjusting for wind speeds and changing currents in real time. Outside, the city moved with him. It wasn't until late evening, as the rain pounded harder against the watchtower windows, that a new alert lit the screen. Not from a district, not from fire or police. From a hospital. Beth Israel Deaconess, flooded basement, failed generator. Neonatal unit on battery backup. They needed evacuation, and fast. "Sending this one directly to you," said the commander over the line. "We don't have ground transport that can reach them in time." Eli didn't speak. He just nodded and began recalibrating Iris mid-flight. He guided her over the flooded freeway, under crumbling scaffolding, through a smashed window into the hospital's eastern wing. Her frame was too small to carry full medical supplies, but she could map a path. She could signal. She could lead. "Follow the lights," Eli said softly as he activated her strobe pulses in sequence. On the hospital side, a team of nurses formed a tight chain, carrying newborn incubators up the emergency stairwell. When they reached the third floor, Iris was there, hovering in the hall like a star. She blinked red twice, then darted left. They followed. Outside, rescue teams coordinated with Eli's guidance, arriving just as the first wave of infants reached the makeshift loading zone. The babies were safe. Every last one. By midnight, the rain slowed. The water began to recede. Boston had been bruised again, but it had fought back with coordination, with clarity, and with the voice that never shouted but always spoke true. Eli sat back in his chair, exhausted, watching Iris and him return in tandem through the night sky. They landed gently on the rooftop pads, blinking blue. The command center chimed in one last time. "You still with us, Sky Operator?" Eli pressed the mic. "Always." The next morning, the city glistened, soaked, yes, but standing tall. The damage had been real, but the response had been sharper than ever before. Fewer injuries, faster rescues, and people knew why. News stories no longer asked who the voice was. They knew. Instead they asked, "Where will he lead us next?" A mural appeared on the side of a building on Washington Street. It wasn't commissioned. Just happened. Painted overnight. A boy with wide, steady eyes. A drone above him, wings stretched. Below, 3 words. Speak through the sky. Eli saw it on his way home from the watchtower. He stood across the street, hoodie pulled up, and just looked at it for a while. Not with pride. Not with discomfort. Just quiet understanding. He'd never asked for recognition. But if it helped another kid, silent in a noisy world, to believe they could matter, it was worth it. That night, he and Alma sat on the roof again, a pot of tea between them. She looked up at the sky, now clear and scattered with stars. You ever wonder what they'll call you in the history books? Eli sipped his tea. Doesn't matter. No. He shook his head. I'm not the point. She raised an eyebrow. Then what is? He looked up, toward the satellites blinking above the city, toward the sky that carried his voice when his feet couldn't. Connection, he said. Even if we never meet, the world wouldn't stop breaking. Storms would come. Systems would fail. But there would always be those who built in silence, who spoke when it mattered, who reached through circuits, through signals, through sky. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there would hear them. End of story. Here are 7 moral lessons that can be drawn from the boy who spoke through the sky. 1. The power of quiet persistence. The story emphasizes that not everyone who has the potential to make a difference is loud or attention-seeking. Eli is quiet and reserved, yet his persistence in building and improving his drone, and his quiet actions during a disaster, showcase the power of consistency over time. He doesn't need to speak loudly or boast about his abilities. His work speaks for itself. The moral lesson here is that greatness often comes through steady, quiet effort rather than through attention-grabbing actions. Sometimes, being consistent in your passion and staying true to your values is more impactful than trying to be noticed. Lesson to learn: it's not always the loudest voices or the flashiest people who change the world, but those who persist in their work regardless of recognition. 2. Embracing uniqueness can lead to unforeseen strength. Eli is seen as strange by others because of his silence, his love for building things alone, and his withdrawn nature. At first, he is labeled as someone who will never amount to anything because he doesn't fit in with societal expectations. However, it's precisely his unique qualities, his ability to work with technology, his quiet thinking, that allow him to respond to the crisis in ways that others can't. This teaches the lesson that being different doesn't mean being less valuable. In fact, our differences can be what give us strength when challenges arise. Embracing who you are without trying to conform can lead to the discovery of hidden talents and abilities. Lesson to learn: embrace your uniqueness because it might be the very thing that helps you rise to the occasion when others cannot. 3. Overcoming doubts and expectations. Throughout the story, Eli is constantly underestimated. People expect him to fail because he doesn't fit the mold of a traditional hero. But when disaster strikes, it's Eli who rises to the occasion. This lesson is about overcoming external doubts and internal fears. Sometimes, the expectations others place on us can limit our belief in our own potential. Eli defies those expectations and shows that we should never let others define what we are capable of. The message is clear. Don't let the opinions or low expectations of others limit your own self-perception or stop you from achieving what you are capable of. Lesson to learn: never let others' doubts define your worth or your potential. Prove them wrong by stepping into your true abilities. 4. The importance of communication and connection. Though Eli is shy and rarely speaks, he still finds a way to connect with others, using technology as his voice. His drones serve as a bridge between the people in need and the help they require. This story shows that communication is not just about words. It's also about understanding the needs of others and finding creative ways to meet those needs. Sometimes, the most effective form of communication is through actions rather than just talking. The moral is that there are many ways to communicate, and the most important thing is to ensure that you reach others when they need you, even if it's through unconventional means. Lesson to learn: communication isn't just about speaking. It's about understanding and finding ways to connect with others, even in nonverbal ways. 5. Innovation can come from adversity. Adversity often forces people to look for creative solutions to problems. Eli's journey shows that in times of crisis, the pressure of a disaster can lead to innovation and breakthroughs that otherwise might never have occurred. By solving problems that arise in the aftermath of the disaster, Eli discovers new ways to improve his drones, and in turn creates even better solutions for future emergencies. This lesson emphasizes that adversity, though painful, can often lead to the most significant breakthroughs in our lives. When faced with hardship, instead of retreating, we can use it as fuel to create, innovate, and solve problems we never imagined we could. Lesson to learn: difficult situations often spark the most creative and impactful innovations. Don't be afraid to face challenges as they could lead to new discoveries. 6. Everyone has a role in community. Eli, though isolated and often alone, ultimately plays a pivotal role in saving others. His ability to contribute to the safety of the city shows that every individual has something valuable to offer to their community, no matter how small or silent their role might seem at first. It is through small, meaningful actions that communities thrive. Eli is proof that even those who are considered out of place or different can have a powerful impact when they are given the opportunity. The story teaches that everyone has a role, and even the quietest or most overlooked person can make a difference when the community comes together. Lesson to learn: every individual has something valuable to offer. Don't underestimate your ability to impact your community, even if you think you have little to contribute. 7. The importance of helping without expectation of recognition. Throughout the story, Eli never asks for recognition or reward. He helps because it's the right thing to do. His humility is a central theme, showing that true service is not about being praised but about fulfilling a need. The recognition he receives later is secondary to the satisfaction of knowing he made a difference. In today's world, where people often expect recognition for their actions, this story reminds us that sometimes the most profound acts of service are those done without seeking acknowledgement or reward. This lesson is about doing what is right because it is right, not for the accolades. Genuine service comes from the heart, not from the desire for recognition. Lesson to learn: help others because it's the right thing to do, not because you expect recognition. True fulfillment comes from the act of giving, not from the rewards that may follow. Each of these lessons provides a roadmap for personal growth, resilience, and the importance of staying true to oneself. The story of the boy who spoke through the sky illustrates that even in a world full of noise, quiet persistence, creative problem-solving, and selfless action can lead to profound change. Thank you so much for watching and listening to The Boy Who Spoke Through the Sky. I hope Eli's journey has inspired you, showing that even the quietest voices can have the power to change the world. The lessons of resilience, innovation, and selfless service remind us all that we each have something valuable to offer, no matter how small or silent our contributions may seem. If you enjoyed this story and found it meaningful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring content. There are plenty more stories, lessons, and motivational videos on this channel that I believe you'll enjoy. Thanks again for your time, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep building, and keep believing in the power of your own voice.